the class. Okay, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna close this door, if that's okay. Yes. Very sensitive to noises. Yeah, they distract me a lot. So today we are here for Conflict Management 102. So welcome everybody. I'm very excited about doing this workshop today with you guys because this is one of the things that I like the most. I find it very interesting and, I want to share with you the things that I have learned. So last year we did one conflict management 101, and it was the basics of conflict management. And today, in the beginning, for the people that are new, we are going to review a few of the concepts that we learned back then. And we are going to move further into the conversation, and we're going to make sure we cover like deep down how to best do conflict management. So you're welcome. Come in, please. How to do conflict management. So before we started, there's a few things that I'm logging in, a few people that are in the waiting room in the meantime. And okay. So we are going to talk about what we have seen so far this year and what we are looking to see for the rest of the year. So, as you know, we present this series monthly on the fourth Tuesday of the month. And we have talked so far about data, about evolving from being a contributor into being an outstanding leader, what coaching is, how to use it with your teams, how to keep them accountable, and conflict management 102 is what we have coming out today. Next month, we are going to be talking about fostering a strong interagency collaborations. And so in thinking about the subject, I went to the agency that I feel collaborates a lot and knows really how to do that, which is Norwalk Acts. And luckily, we are very lucky because we will have Jennifer Barahona coming in as a speaker for us. So we should be in a really nice place learning from people that have done collaboration and they have done it well, because they are known by getting to the community through the collaborations that we have. So, and then we will move into marketing strategies for road reach. We're going to talk about donor engagement. We will be talking about grants later on. And then at the end of the series, we will talk about how to put everything together, right? Planning and actionable items that you can have to continue evolving and using what you learn through these workshops so that you are feel that you are progressing in your knowledge. So let's see. Go to the next one. So a few principles that I always like to review before we start. Very important. I think this crowd is very good at doing this. Be present in the moment. We all have agency to change things, and we all learn from each other. So yeah, participation here is super important because the more you participate, the more we are going to learn from you. I'm not tired of repeating that every time I go and do these presentations in the community, I go back to my office or my home having learned something new from the people that have come and be enjoying us in these presentations. This is right there. So participation is critical, and also we have to make sure that this is a safe place to share, right? We all have different opinions and different ways about thinking of things. And sometimes when somebody has an opinion, it may not be exactly the one that we have. So the best way to share our thoughts is practicing yes and. So instead of saying but, right? I don't agree with what you're saying, you can say, get your point, and also this is something additional that we should be considering or thinking about. Now I know why my remote wasn't working. I was using the wrong remote. Okay, so for engaging remotely, we will have a break. For people that are here, we have the restroom back there. If you are participating remotely, I have a little bit of a hard time seeing everybody while I'm doing the presentation. If you have a question, just shout it out, okay? If you put it in the chat, it's gonna take me longer to see it. So if you have a question, just unmute yourselves and ask me the question. You will be receiving the PowerPoint and the supporting documents. After this presentation, you will always get a survey, so we always want to know how to do better. And you get all the materials afterwards from Katie. So today we are talking about conflict management, which is something that many people are puzzled about. How do I manage conflict? And some of you have been in my previous presentation, so you know a little bit about it. We will be learning today is, first of all, we're going to review a few ideas of conflict management that we talked about last time I did the presentation. We are going to talk about something that is key. And this is something new that I've learned when I completed my conflict management and mediation program with Harvard Law. What are the core concerns of people? If you learn about core concerns, things are going to be a lot easier for you when you manage any kind of conflict. We're gonna talk about what's the conflict mindset, what is useful and what is not, and usually what are unproductive tactics that people use when managing conflict, so that we are very aware about not to use. We will go back to the brain and the dynamics of the brain and how we react to conflict. And then we will be talking about 3 critical skills for conflict management and how do you facilitate awareness for the people that are having conflict at the moment. So we have a packed agenda, and that you are able to participate from the room and the people that are here as well. Okay, so the first concept that I want to review again is just the thought that conflict is inevitable, right? And conflict has a bad reputation. When we think about conflict, we tend to think about it as something that is problematic. It's going to raise high emotions. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to talk about my feelings because this is kind of like a difficult subject to manage. But conflict really can be healthy conflict as well. When we don't agree with each other, things that can happen is stimulate creativity, especially if you're dealing with conflict amongst teams, right? I think that this could be done in a different way. It helps us to get out of the status quo and create new things. It also helps with problem solving. When we come all together and we are able to discuss things that we are not necessarily in agreement with, we can solve a lot of issues that we didn't think about in other ways before we even had that conversation. It also helps with decision making. So if you look at conflict in the way in which it can be used in organizations, it's the time of conflict that you want to be in all the time. The kind of conflict that people are afraid about is the unhealthy one, which is lowers morale, right? When people and high emotions run high and people are not able to communicate well, morale goes down. It also lowers productivity and then creates tension. So it's super essential for managers, everyone, to deal with conflict, because if we are able to take conflict and put it in the healthy area, if there is a conflict that there is something that we can learn, it will be very beneficial for us, our coworkers, and the organization that we are working with. So there are 2 sources of conflict when it comes to in organizations or businesses and so on. They can have 2 originations. One of them is organizational. The other one is interpersonal. What do I mean when I say organizational? For example, when there are weak workplace systems and processes, let's say there are things that need to be done and there's no clarity on how they need to be done. Most people, if they get confused, equally to misunderstandings, conflicts, and so on. If the structures are weak, same thing. If there is, for example, a weak structure among supervisors versus how many employees, and so on, that create a lot of conflict because there is no clear path to follow, and it's not outlined. Another source is if the work roles are poorly defined, right? People step into their jobs, their job description says one thing, but then when they are in the job, they have to do all these other things, and the lines are blurred, and we don't know, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Or You start stepping into someone else's toes. This is my job versus this is their job. So establishing roles is very, very key for all kinds of workers to make sure that they know what they are supposed to do and who is in charge of what. If there are ineffective hierarchies, I can't pronounce that, but you can read it. If there is lack of accountability, and if there is competition for resources, also that can create conflict, right? And that's not unusual to have competition for resources when the resources are little. For example, one thing that I see a resource that can be very scarce in nonprofits could be volunteers, right? So you need volunteers for different things, and so you are constantly battling who can have more volunteers or not, or who has the right technology, or who has access to a specific thing that we need to get our work done. And because our resources financially are limited, sometimes those are things that you need to work around and make sure that there is a clear structure so everybody understands. So when there is weak systems in an organization, conflict may arise. But that's a result of the system. So when we talked about conflict last time, one of the things that I was pointing out at is when somebody comes to you with a conflict, as a manager or as a co-worker, the best thing that you can do is to evaluate. Is it organization? Is this a problem that we can fix with a process? Or is this personal? Does it have to be with personality issues? Sometimes they are mixed, right? So something that can be fixed or with a process is very easy to fix. Okay, so we have a confusion about which days we are closed and when we are supposed to have programs open or closed. Okay, let's work together on a calendar and let's make sure we are communicating in a way that is clear so that we can fix that process. Now, if behind the scenes there's also personality issues, then that's what I'm going to be talking about a lot more today. So interpersonal issues, miscommunications and misunderstandings, different viewpoints, perspectives, opinions, preferences about how to do things, dissimilar personalities and communication styles. It's very human, right? We all have different ways to communicate. We are all different people. We all think differently. To which cultural differences have a big piece into it, right? We do not all communicate the same way. I always make the example of how our culture, Western culture, it is considered polite to look at somebody on the eye when you're talking to them, right? Look at them eye to eye. Other cultures, for them that is not polite, and the ways they show politeness is by lowering their side. So if we don't understand cultural differences, it can be very problematic to interpret how people are communicating or and the way they are saying things, a personality thing or a cultural thing, unless we learn from them. Now, the best way to fit into cultural differences is not to make any assumptions. That's one. And second, ask people. Just ask them, what is their preference? There are also unintentional mistakes. Somebody knows that a task is supposed to be done. They thought it was supposed to be done in a certain way. They did it the wrong way. Mistakes happen. But sometimes those get taken to the next level, right? And we assume that people are doing it in purpose. So things to look out for. Sometimes people feel offended or disrespected. Culture has a lot to do with that as well, or the way they hear things or how they communicate. Another example I usually give, I come from South America. We are very direct at communicating. People from Central America are a little bit softer. So we are speaking the same language, but then the way we are communicating may not always match. So we have to be careful and adapt to the people that we're working with. So the most common causes of miscommunication, let's see, press the wrong button. So not listening carefully to what somebody's saying. We are walking by the hallway and somebody comes to us with an idea or something that they want to say, and because our mind is somewhere else, we are not paying attention. Therefore, we may be getting confused about what has been told to us. Another one, lack of clarity when we are speaking. Sometimes we go to somebody with a half-baked idea, right? And they kind of like do not understand what we're saying because we ourselves do not have an understanding of what we want to say. Next one is being unprepared to have a conversation. Sometimes you are in a situation in which you are having a meeting, you have only 5 minutes to get from here to there, somebody interrupts you with an urgent issue and they want to talk to you right away. It's perfectly okay to say, we need to wait, I need to put full attention on you, right? And I'm not ready to have this conversation. You can let the person explain to you, but just explain that you cannot give them an answer right away because you are not ready to have a conversation. Another one is misinterpreting messages. That happens a lot, right? Verbal communication is just not perfect, not at all. Expectations or assumptions that when we think that people are going to act that way, or we assume that people are going to be acting in a certain way just because we know how they are, right? Lack of context. This is a big one. I have noticed a lot, especially in supervisors and supervised roles, where somebody comes and tells you something, but they don't give you the context of why they're asking you this question. Let's say, for example, your numbers are a little bit lower in your data report this month. We know what has happened, right? People were taking vacation. There was like not enough engagement. Parents were worried about something else. We don't do. If your supervisor comes and asks you why are the numbers so low, how are you going to interpret it?
A little bit on the defensive.
On the defensive, right? You're gonna be like, it's my boss judging me because I didn't do. But if I am your boss and said, listen, I need to kind of explain to the board why our numbers are lower. I know there are real reasons and things happen. Could you tell me the reasons why so I can explain the full fully, right? It's a totally different approach, but many times we don't take the time to explain the context of what we are asking, and that can cause miscommunication. I have seen it, oh no, we have to really work harder to make up the numbers, when the real reason why people were asking that question was like more investigative. I want to understand what is happening versus, I just want to judge you because your numbers are lower. Judgment, there we go. So one of the things that we discussed last time, and I'm going fast through these slides for the people that are new because we have already reviewed and talked about this content before. If you want the link to the previous training, Katie can send it to you because it has all these pieces in it and they are developed a little bit more. But one of the things we usually talk about, and not only at this workshop, but also in other workshops we have done, is the importance of active listening. So for the people that are in the room, because guys, you are my easier targets here. Who remembers what active listening is and what does it look like?
Summarizing what you heard from a person when they're speaking to you.
Right. That's a technique that we use when we listen actively. Any other techniques that we can use?
Just building on that, just confirming again. Let me reinterpret that, or let me repeat it back to you in how I interpret it.
Absolutely. Great.
Just for clarity.
Yeah, those two are great answers. Listening is not about listening to respond, but listening to understand and learn. So we're used to listening and already having the response in our mouth. And when we start formulating a response, guess what happens? What stops happening? Exactly. Just stop listening when you start thinking. We can't do those two things at the same time, even though we think we can be super multitaskers.
No more than.
And that's thinking, not thinking. When you're talking to somebody, it's not about you thinking, it's about you listening to what the other person has to say and putting all your attention on that person. So when you listen actively, you validate what the person is saying. First of all, you acknowledge what this person is saying. Then you confirm that you heard correctly and summarize what it is expected. You ask questions. This is my favorite. I love asking questions because when I ask questions, I become curious about the subject. But instead of thinking that I have all the answers, I start listening for what the answer this person can give me. So it's a really good way to stay present by asking questions. You are like listening to say, oh, and what is next? And what about this? And what about that? You learn a lot more that way. Use curiosity and stay attentive. Summarize next steps when applicable. Especially if you are resolving conflict at work, I will advise you that if you have a conversation that has to do with conflict management with people, you send your same summary on an email. It really helps with two things. So you can keep a record that you actually had that conversation, right? And second, it will help just reconfirming to the person what the next steps were, right? Not everybody writes notes when they are into a meeting. Not everybody remembers everything. Not everybody looks at their notes after. I didn't look at my notes after. So getting an email telling me, okay, so I was great to discuss with you this. We agreed that the next steps will be A, B, and C. Is very helpful for the person that is sending the email and for the person that is receiving the email as well. So what I was saying before is that when you ask questions, instead of thinking about what you will say next, you will be more likely to stay curious and listen to the person and instead of looking, and looking for the answers that somebody is giving you. So it's pretty much what we covered last time we spoke about conflict management. We also talk about toxic work cultures and other things that you can do in the workplace to improve communication. But now I want to introduce you to a new concept that I learned recently that I think is very, very valuable. So these are the 5 core concerns, 5 fundamental interests that every individual has, any individual has that can trigger any issue. To explain it to you in a simple way, when someone comes to you with an issue, there is always something deep running, right? If it's an organizational issue, like we said before, it's something that it can be fixed. But if it's something that is happening repeatedly, right? Or that person is having a specific issue and they're very unhappy about what's going on, you want to look for these core concerns. The issue is the issue. But if this person didn't have this deeper core concern, they will have resolved it themselves, right? When they come to you, it's because there is something that is triggering them. And these are the issues. The first one is autonomy. The second one is appreciation. Next one is affiliation, role, and status. This comes from the book Getting to Yes. I have to say, preface, I have books that I can recommend to you if you want to read more about it. Getting to Yes is an excellent book about negotiating. It's very geared towards law, so it can be a little bit tricky, but sometimes you may feel some things don't apply to you because they talk a lot about negotiating at the table when you're negotiating deals. But it has great, great advice on things that trigger people, and these are the 5 ones. So let's go first with autonomy. What is autonomy? Anybody wants to share their thoughts?
Sounds a little direct, but it's kind of like doing your thing. It's like
Right.
getting the job done, how you would get the job done.
Absolutely.
Giving you the power to.
Yeah.
Permission or, like.
Perfect, April. Yes. Autonomy is the desire to make your own choices and control your own fate. We all have that as humans since the age we were 2 years old and have been showing it. Yeah? When we see little toddlers trying to do their things on their own or making their own decisions and they get so cranky when you tell them not to do something, right? is like the human condition that we all want to be autonomous. We want to be part of a larger group, but we want to be autonomous, make our own decisions. The next core concern is appreciation. It's the desire to be recognized and valued. All of us as humans need that. We do good work, we want to be acknowledged for it. We do well at home, we make a nice dinner. We want to be acknowledged. We may be humble, but hearing appreciation here and there fills our hearts and makes us feel good. It's just part of who we are. The next concern is affiliation. The desire to belong and be accepted as a member of a peer group, to belong to somebody. One of the most painful experiences that humans can have is to be outed. And actually, in all cultures, that was the way that people were punished. They got taken out of the tribe. And so that was the biggest punishment. And being outed is a feeling. That's why, the silent treatment like works for some people. Because there is nothing more painful than not being talked to, not being part of something. And our current justice system uses prisons, not necessarily with the best practices or the best way to recover people, but it's the same concept, right? You don't belong to the society anymore because you haven't behaved. Affiliation is very important for people. Another one is role. The desire to have a meaningful purpose. Whether you are in nonprofit or you are in any organization, having meaningful purpose is important for everybody. That's why people talk about making a difference. That's why our younger generation said, I want to make an impact. They probably know what they mean. Maybe they put it that way, but it's kind of like, yes, I want my life to have some meaning. And in all professions, you can find meaning depending on what it is that you like best and how you see the profession through. Concern number 5 is status. The desire to feel fairly seen and acknowledged. So status is very important for us as well. It's like the elder in the tribe, right? We are always looking to belong to something and see what our status is within that. And it's independently of how humble you are or you're not, it's not an ego thing. It's just kind of like, where am I standing in relationship with the rest of it? Okay, so now it's going to be time to participate because I'm going to give you a few examples and you are going to tell me what kind of core concern it may appear. So here is the trick. And this is what I want you to start thinking about. Somebody is going to come to your office or is going to share with you something that is concerning. We're going to come with a message that on the surface seems like something very, clear, something that needs to be resolved. But what I want you to look for is the core concern. What is it that people are really looking for when they are trying to resolve, when they are sharing these things with you? You may not know that they are trying to resolve this, but you can find out. Okay, so let's go with the first statement. And I just not to trick you guys, I put the 5 concerns on the top there so you can kind of make a comparison. What we're gonna do is we're gonna read the sentence and you're gonna tell me how you would normally interpret a sentence like that. And then we will find what the core concern is. Okay. So the first one. She took my report and made a few changes to improve it. When she presented at the meeting, she never mentioned my name and took all the credit for herself. So here I'm ready for participation. Anybody working remote that would like to share how they would normally interpret this sentence or this statement? Just unmute yourselves and tell me.
Okay, I'll go. I think that my feeling would be that I would have been disrespected as well as slighted. Because if we truly promote a team approach, then everyone has to be recognized for their effort put forth.
All right. So you have been disrespected, Consuelo. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh,
You wanna share?
oh, appreciation. Why, yeah, that's how I would say it. Is like, the fact that you didn't even mention that I had anything to do with it.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, well, I didn't appreciate my opinion on my report very much.
absolutely. So I have a couple for these, because sometimes concerns can be mixed, right?
Mhm.
So the first one is status that I have, and the second one is appreciation, right? I mean, I am doing all the work, and then here is this person that is taking all the credit for it. So yes, I kind of can talk to that person and say, oh yeah, how often has this happened? I'm going to talk to this other person to make sure they acknowledge you when when they do presentation. Let's see if we can change the behavior. But really, when you are taking those steps, what you are doing is fixing the problem on the surface.
Can I give you a good example that just happened?
Please.
I was participating in a interview session for the teens for the mayor's program, summer youth program. And the person that was, doing the whole thing sent an email out
Mhm.
to all of us. And she said, thank you to every single individual that came in, except for me. So I called her. I said, hey, because I know her. I said, why did you send an email? Because my name isn't mentioned. And she goes, what do you mean? I thank everybody. I said, yeah, everybody. My name isn't on it. And she was like, what? She reread it and she goes, oh my God, I'm going to send her an apology right now.
Mm.
I don't say it was much, but I wanted her to know, like, if that's the case, don't send it to me.
So then, very next step for you to take Sharon, because sometimes we hesitate in asking those questions, and what happens is that we put certain meaning in it,
Yeah, exactly.
and we never have the opportunity to clarify.
I'll go around thinking, oh my God, why
It doesn't
go
like me.
around with all that headache?
Exactly. I've been feeling and appreciated. But my early years of nonprofits, and we had events, and like we were missing one person's name tag, and people were like, I'm like, why do they get so offended because we don't have the name tag? I said until I went to an event, they didn't have my name tag. And I felt, because it was part of the blue. And I was like, oh no, it was right. Oh, yeah, it's kind of name tag and forgot about me, right? So these are natural feelings, and rational or irrational, but they're feelings, and we have to acknowledge that. Awesome. So let's go to the next step. I have been working here for 10 years, and I have created this system. When Trisha comes in and starts making changes without consulting or asking why we do things the way we do them here.
That must happen a lot.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Just a big advice. When you go into a new job, go with the investigative mode. Don't go into I'm gonna change things mode, right? Because you want to respect the work that other people have created. But let's say somebody comes to you and tell you something like that. I'm gonna pick on somebody from the virtual world. Michelle, you are always good at participating, so I'm going to pick on you. And so if somebody came to you with this concern, what would you think I have to do right now? Normally.
I would think that what you have to do is maybe talk to them and ask them why they're making those changes and explain why you did things a certain way. And if you could each, speak, then maybe you could understand, where you can meet in the center, maybe.
So you will go to the other person and say, oh, listen, I appreciate you doing these changes, but I want to understand why and what can we do about it, because we have had this for a long time. Thank you, Michelle. Now, if you were to, I'm going to ask you too, since you answered this so brilliantly. If you were to try to go into the deeper care concerns, what would you select for somebody that comes in with this concern to you?
I think you have to handle it gingerly. so you're not treading on anyone's feet, and you know, work together to see how you can come to some sort of a conclusion. I think it's very hard to when people come in and they want to make significant changes and people are doing them so hard a long time, you have to change it's a change in culture too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So do you wanna?
I think too, that can be taken as, oh, so she's trying to think,
Yeah. Yeah, what she's trying to do,
What she's
she's
trying to
trying
do.
to show
trying to
something.
show off and take my job,
Yeah.
or, you know.
She's trying to prove that we're doing things right before here, right?
Like, you know, that kind of feeling.
So a few concerns that core concerns that may come with this, maybe a status, right? Is she trying to do better than us? Right? We have put 10 years of work in here.
A lot.
Tears and sweats and tears. And then here she comes trying to prove that we have been doing things done wrong for a very long time. That's a status concern, right? Or appreciation. Has the work that I have done for so many years been even appreciated? Because here comes Trisha and she changes everything and nobody's saying anything about it. So all the effort I put into wasn't being appreciated. So those are the kind of things that you want. Listen, when I do these classes, a lot of people say, oh, then I have to become a psychologist. No, you don't have to be a psychologist. That's how you feel. Become a psychologist.
Yeah, but you could think this is stuff that people walk around with, and if they don't address it, it becomes a bigger problem.
Because
Because
it's not taught anymore,
it's not, yeah,
unless you're here.
you know, you're kind of thinking, somebody comes in, you don't even know that person in any kind of personal or what, you don't know what
No
their
relationship.
relationship is, no relationship with them. And you automatically assume, oh, here comes a new one, she's like 10 years younger than me and she thinks she's this and that, that. And you know, but you carry this around because you don't address it, instead of like approaching a person and just explaining, you know, but you know, 10 years ago, this is what we did. And you know, and the two of you can start communicating and said, so like you said, you're building your problem solving, you're creative. So her method and your method put together and you work together to do it. And then, you know, all of a sudden she might recognize, oh my God, you did this, and then your status, you know, you feel different.
Right.
But if you just, that's what you see in the workplace and everywhere, people just like bubble it in and accuse everybody without knowing what the, you know, what's the motive.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if role came into this.
Yes, what's your role, yeah.
Right, what's my
Right.
role now? She's chiming in.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're trying to write, or what's now my.
I'm trying to take my job.
Doesn't that come back a little bit with confidence and self-esteem? If that person had a little more of that, I don't think it would be that much of an issue.
So interesting. I've had this exact scenario with someone who came in and did things a certain way. And so for the last 6 months, she basically has my old job. I've been given another job, which I enjoy. But so I finally just took a step back and empowered myself with, okay, well, part of my job was to develop training. But now that she has this role, I'm gonna let that go. And I said it to my boss, for the last 15 years, that has been my role. Now that she's in my position, for all intents and purposes, that's really her role. I'll work on the logistics. And surprisingly, he was like, yeah, right. And so, but to your point, if I had not spoken up or had that experience, I'd still be taking on that role and that stressor. And so,
And then you'll say, oh, I'm doing what she should be doing.
so this is so good. This is.
Yeah, and that's precisely the reason why you want to dig in deeper. Because the person that doesn't feel appreciated is gonna walk around not feeling appreciated for a lot of things. So there is, again, you don't have to be a psychologist, but you can provide that for that person, right? If you learn that this is what is going on with them, you can say, you have done such a good job and you did so well during all these years. I'm sure Trisha can use a lot of your advice. Can I help you to partner together so that you know she feels that she's doing something meaningful, while you feel that what you have created is being respected, right? And so you are not going to work on the deeper psychological issues that that person has. Because yes, I grew up in a household where my parents were super demanding. And I was never my grades, I got an A, and I always was, why didn't you get an A class? Right?
I said, Trish, I don't wanna hear all that, let's just.
There may be a lot of things, but to connect with the person that you or that comes to you with that specific issue, and they hear from you that their work has been appreciated, that the fact that Trisha is here is not going to change their status in the organization, right? If you can pinpoint that, you can help that person feel better and look for a solution that is not on the surface, it's more deep inside what that person is feeling. Okay, great, we're doing good. Next one, I have 4, so. I'm sure you never heard this. My supervisor is a micromanager. He has to constantly review everything I do.
Nobody allows anybody.
Okay, I'm gonna pick up somebody in the remote world because this is an easy answer. What do you think is Juan, are you there? Can you unmute yourself? What do you think is your opinion? You need to unmute yourself, sorry. Yes, he was talking. There we go.
Autonomy.
Autonomy,
There we go.
that is correct. Thank you so much. Autonomy, that's what that person is looking for. The ability to do things on their own and not being checked upon all the time because that makes them feel less confidence. So there we go. All right, and last examples. Let's see. Can be a little bit similar to the others. I'm sure you heard these too. Decisions are being made without consulting my opinion. I believe my department should have some say in something that we will have to implement. Now, let me ask you a challenging question. If you were to evaluate this, is this organization or interpersonal? Right, both. Right, because the organization definitely should be consulting or running things by someone who's going to be affected by the decision, right? Okay, when we learn about management and management styles, we learn that there's something called adaptive leadership. In adaptive leadership, you function depending on what you need. If you need a fast decision, sometimes you cannot ask everybody. But if it's going to be a big decision that is going to take time and somebody else has to implement, there has to be a way to fix the system so that people can be part of the decision. But if we were to think about the core concern, what do you think is underneath this statement?
I think it's autonomy and affiliation.
Status.
Affiliation, but I think autonomy is a good one. Yeah, I think they're all interlaced by affiliation, right? Why am I being left out of this, right? We are an organization, we all do things together, this is going to affect my department, and why I'm not being part of this group, am I being left out? So here are a few examples. Hopefully you will be able to think about that when you are confronting an next problem, and just keep in mind, what is the deeper thing that is going on? Because when you learn the deeper thing, it's going to help you resolve the conflict that is happening. Okay, so we are going to take a little break right now. I think I have a 5-minute break. It's 1:16. We will be back at 1:21. Okay. I'll see you in a minute. Try it again. And share. Before I share the PowerPoint, I want to acknowledge that we have a participant all the way from Uganda here. Her name is Namu Kwaya. Is that correct? Yes. I have seen her a couple of times in the past, but I did notice those times that where she is night. So it's dark. It's like your background looks like it is night. So I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you can unmute yourself and say hi to us. She's typing. So
Yeah, she's
she says you're welcome. So it's very nice to have you. Okay. So I'll go back to the screen. And put this in presentation mode. Close this. Presenter view. And swing around. Oh. So let's go back for a second. So good. So we're gonna keep on talking about this way of looking conflict management a little bit.
I don't know where it's coming from. I smell it. Like it's been bothering me for a while and it keeps on getting stronger. I went to the back hallway, but because there's animals in the back hallway, I can't smell through that.
You see, I'm gonna mute everybody. Okay. Awesome. So we're gonna keep on looking deeper to conflict management and going more into what may be the causes and the good ways to manage conflict at the level of you being the mediator, really, you being the person that somebody comes with a complaint to or a situation. So there are certain conflict mindsets that people have that may be and productive. So I'm going to give you the unproductive one first, and then what is the productive way to take a look at this. A lot of people, when you are resolving a conflict, think that the pie is fixed. It's either black or white. There is no solution in the middle, right? It's either that one way or that way. There is no solution in the middle. Why people think that way? Because emotions have taken over and I'm feeling unvalued and all the things that we talked about before the break. So, it is important as the person is mediating or having a conversation, right? Resolving the conflict to can expand the pie and look at things a little bit differently, and we can all work together to find a better solution. So it's not only her way or it's the way that we can do things together. It's a productive outlook. It's not black and white, right? Is that people think really about the short-term results. What is it that is going to happen that is going to fix the situation for me, right? Versus what do we want to do in the long term, right? What results that benefit us all more in the future. So yes, short-term things need to be fixed, specifically if they're organizationally process-oriented. But these points are like, what is our learning experience right now? And where can we be, like from this problem happening today, if we are able to resolve it, where can we be in 3 months, right? We can be better people, we can be a better organization, we can talk about things in a different way. How productive is, and this is very natural, I should protect myself. Like somebody's coming and I'm receiving an attack and I need to protect myself, so I'm gonna put my guard on and do anything that is necessary to push the situation away, right? Feeling that way is very human. It's natural. It's part of our brain functions. When we have a stress and we perceive danger, this is how we feel. We need to protect ourselves, put the ball up. A better approach is that we should work together to resolve this, right? And when you are at a negotiating table, let's say tenant, landlord, right? They have very different focuses on what they want. So how can we work together to work on our same interests, right? And what are the interests again? Appreciation, autonomy, and so on. I should wait and see what they do versus I should be proactive and not there. Well, let's say what they're gonna let's figure out what they're gonna do first, and then I'll see how can I counterattack versus being, proactive and say, okay, how can we resolve this? How can we make it happen? Yes, like for example, Sharon, in her experience with the email, she could have been, oh, I see what's happening here. Let's see what happens next when they need me again.
Right. You're gonna need me.
Or you were, but instead you call that person and figure out, what was going on. And you give the opportunity to that person to fix that mistake, that oversight that they have. I must be aggressive, right? I need to defend myself versus I must be assertive, right? I really need to set my boundaries and, express myself in a way that is assertive, but I don't need necessarily to be aggressive. One of the things that we talked about a lot in the program that I attended, because we had a lot of people who were lawyers in the cohort, is that when you are a litigator, usually you are taught to be aggressive. These are the techniques that is used so that you can win. But in real life, side of the court, that tends to be not such a good way of doing things, right?
When you're assertive, people tend to sometimes misinterpret that though.
Mhm.
Because you're that, a person that, right? The attempt to approach the subject matter,
Mhm.
they take you as aggressive and I guess like you said too, that has probably have to do with body movement and tone and everything like that.
Uh-huh.
Cause you can be assertive. I have a very assertive sister. Very. Very.
He's the best.
She say black if it's black, blue if it's blue, and there is no, it's just the way she says it. So for years, we've been teaching her not to bring the aggression behavior to it,
Right.
but she is assertive. Some people like it, some people don't, but it is, I think aggression and assertiveness are like when you're on the job and stuff, it can be very touchy.
Right. And one piece of advice that I can give people who are like, when they are being assertive and it comes out aggressive, is try not to be assertive at the moment. Because your emotions are high.
Mhm.
And if your emotions are high, then the message is going to come out wrong. So wait until you calm down, and you always have the opportunity to revisit, to talk later about it, right? And say, and I want to clarify, I want to tell you, what I feel is acceptable to me, and set your boundaries in a way when you feel more calm. It's very hard when you are having a situation that is emotional. Yes.
I just want to add that there's a cultural piece that doesn't get this, like I'm from the Midwest, so everybody would view the way that anything is done here as aggressive.
Northeast.
But it's cultural in the sense that, like, if I were to approach things the way I do here, people would consider me very rude.
Mhm.
And again, I mean, it's not to be changed, it just is a difference that depending on even where you're born in the country, or if you're born in the South. I find Southern people to be much more polite, though I'm not sure that they mean it as much.
Definitely mean it up here when they're not.
By it either, you could be, somebody could,
It's
you
the way
don't really mean anything by it.
It's normal.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because culture is a big important component of it. And we all communicate differently. If we have time to learn from that person and value them as they are, then we can be more understanding of what it looks like for them to be assertive, right? We can be more able to talk things through and be more patient and have more empathy for that person. That's why it's so important to get to know the people that you're working with, because you may see them in a different. And you also can ask, say, that came out a little strong. Is this kind of, why is that? And the person may say, I just talk like that. And you're like, okay. What we talked about last time, my husband gets that all the time. I'm not yelling at you, I just talk like that. One of the things that we talked about at the last workshop was try not to be the tone police. Because if you're always policing the way people are talking, then you're going to be disappointed a lot, because people communicate differently. So, okay, next one is, I know how they will think and act. Prejudge bad news. If you believe you know a person, right, 100%, you're gonna be set for failure. The worst thing that we can do in relationships is give somebody a label, because all of us have many layers as a human being. We all have different aspects of our personality. So every time you label somebody and now you prejudge them based on that label you have put on it, you are missing the opportunity to get to know that person a little better. Because now you are looking at them through these lenses and these lenses only. So anything they say, maybe attached to the bad qualities you have put into that person. When I resolve conflict, I hear all the time, oh, she's a liar, she's a manipulator. And maybe there are certain pieces of their personality that they use as a way to manipulate situations, but also maybe there are other aspects of what's going on with that person. And so when we block ourselves to think about somebody in a certain way, it's very difficult to change our minds. We are actually looking for proof that what I'm saying is really the kind of person they are. So when you think, if you know how they think and would act, maybe you can think about it, or maybe by having a conversation, I could influence this person to act in a different way, to be differently, to take a look at things in a different light, a different point of view. They act up because they are mistaken, foolish and bad. I mean, I hear these things all the time. You don't know what they're doing. Everyone else is dumb except me, right? I'm the smartest person in this room, and everybody else don't know what they're doing. It's often that happens. But if you think about that, people do
That's interesting.
things to meet their interests, right? They do what they think they do to meet their interests. The landlord wants to get me out of the house. Well, I'm going to show him and not pay his rent, right? And the landlord is like, oh, this person is this, and that. Well, this person is doing with the tools they have in their life and the things they have learned, they're doing what they think will do best to meet what they need at the moment. So these are important things to keep on when you are thinking about the mindset for conflict. So, when you get the PowerPoint, you can read that and think about it a little more. Say, to share something now, express an opinion about it.
That last bullet really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I have a colleague who I've known for many, many years, but she not worked together until most recently. Knowing what her background is and where she grew up and all of these things, I've recognized that she's really a covert narcissist, which is a new thing for me. And this is her, but now that I understand who she is, it's much easier to work and understand what her framework is, and that she just really wants to get to that last root of her professional life, maybe in her personal life, but in our relationship, that's what is important.
Right.
So that really stood out to me.
Yeah. For example, I'm super let's say I'm an engineer. Okay, my head works differently. I want to get to the point and resolve the problem, right? And I'm talking to somebody that likes to just share knowledge and be. So this engineer keeps interrupting the person that just wants to share knowledge. If you understand that this engineer is thinking differently and they want to get to the point and the solution, right? Normally that person that wants to tell their story and they want to go on and on about how things are connected and so on. I think this person is he kept on interrupting me, right? But if you understood that the engineer, or it can be a woman engineer, right? She was attempting to get to the point so that she can figure out the answer to this conundrum, right? It could really make a difference when you are interacting with people, because people think differently, everybody's brains work differently, and we all have different ways to approach things. Okay.
I don't need all the rigor on ones. I just gotta go do it.
Right.
Yeah,
Let's get to the
I just need to do it.
May I say something?
yes.
This is all great. This is answering practically every question. However, and I come from a different background. I was a public accountant. Okay, and I was an auditor. Worse than an engineer, because an engineer very seldom they have the enough to fix it. They are being told how to do things. You're going to install this water system, this and that. I, or later, by management, want you to review what this guy is doing, because he told me that it was going to cost me $1 million. And now coming into the 2,900,000. And I want you to tell me every penny that this deleted guy, seems like politics, is doing this. Now, I know that it's a world very minor, but today in America, stick really with the bloody computer for everything. Because the only place where the computer is not yet in is in the bathroom. And it's coming.
Take the computer, but out of
That's the case. Then all this is great. I only have one suggestion. Let's cut the talk, put it in writing. The very same person who tell you this didn't come and said, never say that. Or you didn't tell me this.
Email.
And this is that. Email, this paper, something in writing. That is the one that I found. When Price Waterhouse sent me to check it back, where $11 million in one case was about 211 still found disappear. Don't want an explanation. Say it was fast.
share your input.
That is what in writing means. This is so great. It's great. It's going to help many people. I believe that behind all of this, there has to be, but in America, they call it the matter of fact. That has to be this, has to be that.
I actually do have something at the end about it regarding what is the data that people hear. So I appreciate your point of view, and I think you are correct. Like, when you have a conversation, keeping things in writing, and even sending someone a note about what was discussed can be very helpful. And not only because, people may have a shady kind of situation going on, also because people may forget, because people, do not like, out of conversations, we keep only a certain percentage. Like in 2 weeks, you are going to remember only 10% of this presentation. So it is very important, to do the follow-up and so on. So thank you for that.
Right back to your point, the last point you made, people do things that meet their interests.
Exactly.
So.
And what is it that they
Write it up.
to get to their interest, which is what they need, right? So here, constructive tactics is a long list. I'm gonna go through it very quickly, but these are things that you should know when you are mediated or managing conflict. Lying, interrupting, pressuring people for time. Unfortunately, you have to spend time to resolve conflict. And if you spend time today, you're better off, because you will be wasting a lot of time later if you don't resolve the conflict early. Yelling, of course. Using guilt. Threats, of course. Now, I know these are a little bit extreme, but you can see that in other environments, right? In nonprofit, we try to be a little bit more kind of together, but I'm sure you have seen in the corporate world a lot of yelling and threatening people. Yes, especially in banks.
Going back to the attorneys.
Yeah, being positional, take it or leave it kind of situation, name dropping, dissension, silent treatment, ignoring, reflection, non-stop talking. Some people manage conversations by talking a lot. But then, did anybody have a matter that once they got mad at you, they never stop talking? Delay, pulling, playing, walking away, ultimatums, my way or the highway, surprise attack, being non-responsive, going around the person and asking somebody else, right? Or having a personal attack on the person.
You are talking about all the human skills.
It's such a positive flag.
It's natural, right?
It's totally human nature. Human nature. Go and friend of a neighbor. Are you telling me
Don't
that
do
you
that.
didn't do any of those? Are you kidding me? What are you doing in the morning? And questioning how many times did you do it before lunch?
Before you leave the house, you have to look in the mirror.
Well,
Please
you-
help me not to be a liar. It's
There you go.
Right.
This list for your daily affirmations.
Have a good day after that.
I will give you a better example. I have been married to the same women for 52 years. When sometimes things happened before I left the house.
Funny and true.
All right.
Mhm.
Our brain and our emotions. I touched on last time we had, I think this presentation was somewhere in there, because everything comes together, right? But with emotions and the brain is that couple of things that are going on. We're gonna talk about like the centers of processing information, but also the fact that we have not necessarily be designed by for the world we live in today, right? Our brains are still all brains, like that function in the survival instincts. So most people will have these three responses to stress, which is flight, fight, or freeze, right? What happens in our body, and this comes, I put the book in there, Crucial Conversations, which is one of the ones that I have here. Based on research and so on, they have learned that when we are getting ready to either fight, flight, or hide, right? We are freezing. Our system, our body sends blood to the muscles that are in the legs and the arms, preparing us for that response. And our gets less blood than the rest of the body. So what is happening is that oxygen that is coming in the brain is not as much as we will do in a situation where we are calm. And that may affect the way we feel and the way that we react to things. Furthermore, if we think about the brain dynamics, we can look at this picture and another one. If we go to the amygdala, which is on the back of the brain, this is a very old part of the brain. And it's the brain, like part of the brain that has us for survival, right? What it does is it responds to the fight, flight, and freeze. Now, this amygdala is very interesting because it has a way to communicate with the brain, which are shortcuts, and not necessarily goes through the prefrontal cortex. That is the part of the brain that tells us, maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I shouldn't act on that, right? Maybe I shouldn't drive after I had a few drinks. But the prefrontal cortex is the part that is developed in the brain last. That's why teenagers are so impulsive, because this part of the brain is not developed for women until they're 21 or 22, and men until they're about 24 or 25. It's not fully developed until then. So this part of the brain, which is in the front, is the one that stops us from being like, acting upon things right away. When we are in a stressful situation, like a conflict, a bad conflict, right? And we're feeling attacked and emotions come up, what it happens is that the amygdala takes a shortcut and sends signals to the emotional part of the brain. So our emotions come up, skipping the part of the brain that can tell you, we can, like, maybe I'm looking at it in a way that is not productive and so on. So that's why time, right, is so important when people are feeling emotional. Somebody was talking about me, to me the other day about my job, and they say, what is the most difficult part of their job? And I say, for me, it's when somebody comes to me with a problem, it's just sitting there and not engaging into the emotions that the person comes in, and try to help them from the outside to find the solution that is best for them. Why so difficult? Because we as humans tend to mirror other people's emotions, right? If somebody's feeling sad, we feel sad. If somebody's feeling happy, we start feeling happy as well. So it's very hard to contain and be very objective and be able to help that person that is coming in a highly emotional state, to help them process what they're going through at the moment. That person also asked me what was the favorite part of my job, and I said it's exactly the same thing. So I really have a lot of this. So here are ways in which you can help people take the long way instead of using the shortcut to the feelings. So let's say you have somebody that comes to your office and is highly emotional. Their brain is feeling all these emotions going by and they're acting on it, right? Their heartbeat is up, they're feeling sweaty, like a lot of things are going on in their body because the brain is thinking that they are under attack. And the brain is getting ready, like their back's getting ready to fight, flight, or freeze. So one of the things that you can do is to gain time until that person finds that balance again. And one of the techniques that you can use is inquire. You want to ask questions to understand, discover, and clarify what's going on. While you're asking questions, what you're giving the person is the opportunity to feel heard. And when they feel heard, they can start calming down and starting lowering that stress level, right? If I feel I'm under attack, my stress level is gonna go up. If I feel I'm being understood, my stress level is going to go down. That's one, inquire. Understand, discover, and clarify. We're gonna go through questions that can be helpful. We're gonna revisit a few things that we already learned. Okay, second, acknowledgement. And we talked about this in the beginning with April and Sharon, right? Confirming that what you heard was correct. Check your understanding, help them feel heard, and even if you don't agree with it, it is important that people feel like somebody's hearing them. I don't know if it's true or not, but I have, those people that repeat the same thing all over again, feel that they do that because they don't feel heard. And they really feel to be acknowledged on what they're saying. Otherwise, they're going to keep on repeating the same things again. And the third one is to engage into advocacy. And so as a supervisor or a coworker, you can share your perspective, teach people, persuade them, and explain of what's going on. Normally in the workplace, people don't have the whole picture for what's happening. So let's say somebody comes in and says, we have a safety issue in this building, and we need to make sure that doors are closed and so on. For example, they may not have the perspective that the fire department requires per code that these doors are open. Let's say, this is kind of like a simple example. So this is your opportunity where if you know the bigger picture, to teach, persuade, and explain to the person what's going on after you have acknowledged and you have make sure that you understood what they were saying correctly. And also it gives you the opportunity to learn more, because sometimes you may not have the full picture as well. And you may want to kind of investigate and see what are the other viewpoints on that situation, which needs to be done discreet, like in a discreet way, but it's a good thing to do, to have the full picture before you can even make an evaluation of things. So these are the skills that you can use. And other things that you can do is first separate the people from the problem. Okay, again, we are trying to get to the point in which the problem is one thing, this is what's happening, and what this person is like is another, right? So for example, you are having a conversation and somebody is telling you that something is not working, I don't know, with the water in the bathroom, and they're stressed about it and so on. Okay, you put the person and the water together, and you already have a preconceived idea of how the person is, like, here he is again making a big deal about nothing. Like, it's very easy to solve, you can close the water, you are becoming judgmental. But if you are able to say, okay, let me put the person on the side and clarify what the problem is, you will have a more easy way to walk through it, because you are not attaching your feelings towards that person to the problem itself. When we use a tool called the non-violent communication system, and it's the name for FPV or something like that. What we do is when we express what we think, we separate the situation from how we felt. And then we talk about what we would like to use in the future. Because if we mush two things together, the situation and how we felt, what is going to happen is that our viewpoint is gonna be totally subjective. It's gonna show as we are looking through the lenses that we see life. So it's very important to say, when this happened, this is how I felt. Okay, the other thing is focus on interest rather than positions, right? What is the main interest of this person at this moment? Not what are they really fighting about right now, is what is their main interest? What is their core concern? What's going on for this person? And clarify that the intention of asking questions is just to learn, right? Questions can be interpreted as judging. So, and if somebody's being emotional about something, they may kind of like think, oh, they're asking me questions because they're judging. So you want to always clarify and say, okay, I want to ask you this question because I need to understand this better, right? There is no judgment, it's just a question. And then move on with the question. So here, those are other important approaches to use. So when you facilitate awareness for people, you inquire about and acknowledge their thoughts. Again, I cannot repeat this enough. You inquire and acknowledge how they're feeling, right? Without solving their problem or without agreeing or disagreeing. When you are in the middle of a conflict, it's important that you don't take sides. And it doesn't look like you're taking sides. It will affect your ability to resolve the problem. So you want to acknowledge their thoughts, acknowledge their feelings without taking any part or trying to solve the problem for them. You will do this through questions. Okay, so I have a couple of you were in our last presentation that talked about how to coach your team. And it's not only for coaching, but these questions are always useful for when you are communicating with anybody. So changing a sentence into a question is like really, really useful. You will get more information. Like, example, you pick up your kid after school and you say something like, were you hungry today? Yes, no, that's a closed question, right? That's all you're gonna get. But if you say a question, how was food today? Oh, it was bad because of this happened, right? If you change your question, you will be able to get more than a yes or no answer. You will be able to get more than that. Somebody's leaving. Okay, thank you, Jack, for letting us know. So what I did in the beginning when I started to become familiar with these questions and using them more in my vocabulary was to put a sticky note on my computer. So every time I try to kind of like have a conversation with somebody, I try to remember to use, I had like a cheat sheet for questions, especially for coaching, because when you get the training on coaching, you have to learn how to ask these questions like very easily and not ask leading questions. So here are some statements that could show, for example, that you really care in words that work. Who else that shares your views? What else do you think about this topic? Where did you first develop that point of view? When did you start thinking or feeling this way? Why do you feel so strongly about this? How do you feel about people having a different point of view?
She.
Yeah, and so if you turn your questions around and you always try to put a who, a what, a where, a when, and a how on them, you will be, in very good shape on starting a conversation like that. Why can be a little bit tricky. I wouldn't use why all the time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes why can be interpreted as judgment. Yeah. Okay, here is a good advice. Whatever you say, you should expect that. You should always expect that the other side will always hear something different. Right? That's why submitting to writing is important. Right? So when we think about the ladder of difference, right? Here are 3 things that you have to think about. Communication, verbal communication is not easy. And unless you are confirming and validating and doing all these things all the time, there can be a lot of confusion. So things that you can expect is that people may reach a different conclusion of how they view the situation, right? And that's why people have the same situation and they have different stories about it, because we view them with the lenses that we view the world. And that is influenced by how we grow up, the things we learn, the beliefs we have, and the beliefs we hold. The next one is interpretation. Well, one thinks about what they saw, heard, or experienced, how they interpreted the situation may be very different to different people. And last but not least is the information someone notices. That's why when you do reviews and you do the sandwiching kind of like feedback, like for a long time that was very like people recommended to do that. So when you had something negative to say, it didn't hit the person so much. But I remember using that one, and I tell you, the person forgets the feedback in the middle and only keep the good things that you say on the top, on the back. So the information that someone noticed can also be very specific to what that person and what they want to view things. So good rule of thumb, never think that people are going to understand what you're saying right away, and take the opportunity to clarify. Any questions before we go? This is our next workshop, and we invited a speaker for the next workshop. No one else. We will have Jennifer Barahona with us talking about how to build relationships with other organizations and partner with other organizations. So,
Thank you.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. So kind of back in person.
yeah, it's person. Does anybody in this area have a question? Okay, guys, so you are going to get the recording for this. Don't forget to answer the feedback survey. The only way we can get better. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next month on June 25th. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.